finding the time for things, can be difficult, even when you're there.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning that whole thing is like you don't find time. You have to make it.
You have to make it, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you for joining us here on episode 6 of the How to Kick It podcast. I'm here today with Sylva. Sylva, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. I'm Sylva. I'm from the Netherlands. I live close to Amsterdam, and I met Andrew a while back, and he asked me for this podcast. I've been listening to quite a couple of shows of him done in the past, and it sounds really great. I'm really happy to be on the show and share my experiences with all of you.
Well, dude, I'm super happy to have you here. Like we were talking about earlier, this has been a long time coming. I've not only been talking about this project for quite some time, but been talking about getting you on the podcast for a while. I had some sudden travel obligations come up that has kind of delayed our episode, but we're here making it work. I'm currently in Lombok in Indonesia, and you're in what city in the Netherlands right now?
I'm in actually not really a city. It's a town. It's right next to the airport. It's basically a suburb of Amsterdam. I can be in Amsterdam in like 15 minutes, like city center.
Oh, okay.
15 to 20 minutes. It's called Hoofddorp, which is a weird name. Basically, it translates to Mainville, I guess, or Head Village, maybe. It's a weird name for a town. It's a weird town in itself because it's in the middle of what used to be a lake, like the typical Dutch thing, about the Dutch making land out of lakes.
Oh, I always say the Dutch are very innovative. They turned the ocean into a country.
Yeah, basically. So this town is in the middle of exactly in the middle of that lake. And it became the main village of this community. And, I guess they didn't have a lot of imagination making up the name of the town. They just call it Main Village.
And it's pronounced Hoofddorp?
Hoofddorp, yeah. Hoofd means head, and dorp means village.
It kind of sounds like, I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but it kind of sounds like a place in the Harry Potter world.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I am now. Yeah, I've been here ever since, the whole pandemic thing, and a bit before that as well.
Yeah.
But I haven't done much since the whole pandemic thing. Things are finally starting to, move on a little bit.
Yeah, there's been a lot of ebb and flow. There's been a lot of opening up and then shutting back down depending on where you are. So hopefully everything's progressing in a positive way for everybody's, safety and health. But also, the global economy's got to keep going, I guess. So got to figure all that out. Oh, yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah. So you and I met, I want to say it was back in 2018. Is that sound about right?
Yeah, I think... Yeah, it was 2018, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was. I think it was like just end of summer, maybe, like September.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm pretty sure it was around then.
Yeah, I remember, I think Quinn is the one who introduced us. He was on...
exactly, yeah.
Quinn is episode 3, if you guys want to take a listen. And I think you were with your brother as well at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened? I'd been to Bali loads of times before I met you in 2018, and what happened when I was in Bali last time? I was there for a couple months, I guess. Then I went back home, and as soon as I got back home, I got this offer to DJ at a place, and I was thinking, like, wow, like this opportunity to DJ in Bali, that would be nuts if I wouldn't go through with that.
Right.
So I decided, even before I was back in Holland, to go back. And I asked my brother, he had never been to Bali, and he wanted to go to like far away. He'd never left Europe, I think, even. So I took him to Bali, and like 10 days after I got back in Holland, we went to Bali, and I think after that he left, I stayed, and while I was there with him, that's when I met you, Quinn, Thomas, the whole bunch.
The whole crew. Yeah, man, those are definitely good times. So Tell me about your DJ life, because obviously that's influencing your travel. Like, what was your history? Kind of like, how did you get into that, and where is that today?
Well, yeah, actually, like the whole DJing thing never came up in my mind before I started traveling. It wasn't even like maybe it passed through it once or twice where I thought like maybe if I'm there, maybe I'll, have a chance to, DJ somewhere. But DJing basically is all about connections. Well, not all about connections, it's about your talents as well. But there's a big part in connections, the connections you have, your network. And obviously, when you go backpacking, you're going to places you've never been. So there's no network, there's no connections. But we'll get to that bit a little bit later on. I started DJing a long time ago. I think I started developing a taste for DJing around 2003 or 4. And fairly quickly, I started playing on smaller parties, and that kind of progressed real quick into like well, not the bigger festivals, but I guess the biggest one I played was one called Ground Zero, which is somewhere in the east of Holland, and that's like 40,000 people, I think. Oh, wow. And not that I played like for 40,000 people; it was just one tent with maybe 2,000 people, which is still a lot.
Dude, that's
and yeah, and after that, I kind of switched styles every now and then because your taste develops, and you kind of want to play other venues and other kinds of you want to explore your music taste as well. And gradually, I started playing. I guess you could say the BPM went down as the older I got. I started playing a style called a UK hard house, which is like really fast. It's like a hard trance type style, I guess you call it that. Mm-hmm. And that's like 150 BPM. So that's really fast. And now, in comparison to that, I play like 122 or 123, which is deep house, progressive. So my style gradually went from very fast to chill out music and lounge music type.
I'm definitely more. Yeah, I'm definitely more in that school these days. Slow it down. But obviously you said that like DJing and travel kind of went hand in hand, and there's some overlap in that realm. Was your traveling kind of interests and adventures kind of starting, and then DJing came into it, or did they kind of go hand in hand?
Yeah. No, it was like I said, it wasn't really something I thought of when I started traveling. It like even more so when I started traveling, I was thinking I'm going to go to Malaysia and Thailand for a couple months, and I'll see. And then after a couple months, I'm going to come back. I wasn't even planning to go for a long period of time. And once I started traveling, I kind of got the taste of what this whole thing was, like the backpack trails people follow, the hostels. I'd never been in a hostel before. I'd never done actual research on backpacking itself. It was more because a couple of friends of mine were backpacking, and they kind of started, close friends of mine. And even then, I really didn't think about it. But I had the same job for like 9 years, like the same 2 jobs at the same time for 9 years. And I was kind of stuck, I guess, like a lot of people get at one point, I suppose. And I was just thinking, like, wow, what should I do? Because I got some money in the bank. I can buy a nice car, or I don't know, maybe I just bought a house as well. So that was settled already. So I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just quit my job and just go travel for a little bit, figure out what I'm going to do, what the next step is. And then after a couple months, I come back. And that turned out to be a travel of like, I don't know, a little over 2 years.
No way.
Yeah, that turned out to be like 2 years. And
wow.
Obviously my parents were asking like, okay, after a couple months over time, they were like, are you going to come back? I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I'm going to stay here until I'm really fed up with the whole thing. This is I'm enjoying this too much.
Wow.
And that was all possible because at one point I got asked to DJ. I think it wasn't even the first time, wasn't even in Bali. Let me think, because I have to go back quite a while. I think it was Bali actually, the first time I started playing. And once you start, obviously you get to meet people, you get to talk with people you otherwise would not have talked to, maybe because these people are usually a little bit on the edges or backstage or behind the bar, or you get to talk to people after the whole thing, and then you kind of get into it. That's a little bit part of the whole DJing thing.
Right. You
So
gotta
one
make your
thing turned
connections.
into another, and that's when I started realizing like this could be very handy because I don't really have to talk to anyone. I don't need to speak the language. It's obviously handy if you do, but everybody speaks English anyway.
Well, yeah,
And
but like
you can just do your thing, and it's
music's
well paid
also,
as well. Actually,
yeah,
no, now that I think of it, Australia was the first place I started.
yeah.
That was the first place where I
And then
started. Now that
also,
I think back, that was the first place. Yeah.
sure. And then music is obviously the universal language as well.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And it helps the fact, like maybe, actually, I don't know. I keep saying this to people because in my mind I think it helps, but actually I don't know for a fact if it does. But the bartender or the bar started playing out in Melbourne was like, okay, dude, like I'm gonna give you a tryout. So the whole tryout thing, he really liked it, and he's like, that's actually a good thing that you're from Holland because I can put like an L behind your name that might attract DJ from Holland, as DJs being basically export product number one in Holland. Like a lot of Dutch DJs are very famous, so he thought it might help getting people in, and I thought it did maybe as well. So I'd like to think it did.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that kind of helps, maybe.
yeah, I think being like exotic, in a different place, you're definitely more marketable. People are a little more interested than somebody
Yeah.
maybe from their own backyard,
Hmm.
So
So yeah, that's how that started, I guess.
yeah, so obviously DJing has played a significant role in where you went, for
Yeah.
how long you went, and that's all too familiar story about you starting out on
Hmm.
a 2 month, 3 month trip, and it turning into over 2 years. It's a story that's very true for myself. So I really I connect with that as well. You and I have sat down and talked many different times. We spent a lot
Oh
of time
yeah.
together in Bali. You hosted me when I was in the Netherlands for a little bit, where I learned a lot about you, I would say, in the Netherlands, more so than anywhere else, because at the time we went, I think I got to spend like a weekday with you, well, not really on the weekend. So I remember we went to that chicken spot in Haarlem, and then
Yeah.
we got a couple beers, and then we ended up just like chilling and having a chat. And you were talking to me about your experiences living in Canada, which for me as an American, it's my own backyard, and I've never been to Canada, and
Hmm.
it's right there. It's
What? How come?
I think it's that whole thing you talked about, like a DJ from another country. It just wasn't that exotic to me at the time.
Ah, right. Okay, I can
Yeah,
get that. Like for me, Belgium or Germany wouldn't be my first thought to
sure.
travel to if I would go to a nearby other country. I would rather go to like maybe Scandinavia or like one country further than that because I can
Exactly.
get that, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely on my list, and spending more time out of America, I've met a lot of Canadians who are traveling, and they've always, pitched it and really painted a nice picture. I've had some friends who lived in BC and Vancouver, and just only good things. And you've obviously said only good things. I'm not a big fan of the cold, so I probably need to go in the summer. But share with me like how you ended up in Canada, and then we'll kind of going from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's a fun thing about all these backpack stories because it's all about connections you make, and
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly the same. This whole Canada thing started out in Bali, as most funny stories do, I guess. They There I met a couple of guys that were staying at a hostel in Canggu called Canggu Surf Hostel, and it was a really nice hostel. It kind of looked like a little temple,
Mm-hmm.
and we just got along very well. We had a lot of fun. One of them guys called Niels Weber. He's half Dutch actually, and he still spoke a couple of words Dutch. So that was a connection right off the bat. And his friend Kale was this like really, really, really funny dude. He just had some people have that, that sense of comedic, I don't know, comedic timing, and you always have like this one guy in a group which is hilariously funny. He was that guy.
For sure. Some people are just born funny.
Huh?
Some people are just born funny.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just had that, and so we started talking. This evening, we were sitting at the pool having a couple of beers, and everybody was just talking about what they were doing back home and what kind of life they come from. And Kale was telling me about this work he was doing called tree falling. So I was very interested in what that entailed exactly. And he basically said, well, there's this what's the name again? This beetle, this bark beetle type animal that eats up the tree. I think it's like a non-domestic, or it's like a brought-in animal. I'm not sure on that though, but basically it's just this animal that eats up the pine trees.
Right. It's called like
pine beetles.
Invasive species.
Invasive species. I'm not sure on that, but I think I remember him saying that. And so what they do is there's a group of people that fly over the canopy of these forests. They see, like, on the coloration, which forests are sick, or which trees are sick and which are not. And then they save the coordinates, and then these other people go out and they basically identify the exact trees and put this ribbon around it. And then this friend of mine, Kale, comes in the winter to cut down the actual trees. So you get a set of coordinates with a plot, and then you move to that plot wherever it is, and then you cut down the tree, you chop up the tree, and you stack them in a certain way, and you light the whole thing on fire. Like the little pyramid you make, you light that on fire. And it has to be done in a certain way that the whole pile burns up. Because if it doesn't, you have to come in the next day again to make sure that otherwise the whole thing spreads again. Everything has to go.
Right.
And I think he said that it's something that it can't be eradicated, but they can manage it by doing this.
Right. And it's
so long story short, he cuts down trees.
Right. And it's to basically, by taking out these small sections time and time again, you're actually protecting and making the rest of the forest stronger.
Exactly, because these trees are basically dead anyway.
Right.
You might as well just cut them down. And sometimes when a tree's being cut, you can see the inside is hollow. They just, like a termite, they just eat up the wood inside. Mm. And then they move from tree to tree. And you can see by the bark of the tree when there's like it's like a little micro chimney on the side of the tree. And that's where they go in and out. And that's how they identify the trees that are infected.
Yeah, this is obviously not easy work by anyone's standards.
No, because there's a reason why they do it in the winter.
Why is that?
Well, that stack that you set on fire, if you do that in the summer, well, you know what temperature it's now on the northwest coast. It's like 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's well over 100, I think.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, so if you do that in the summer, you'll burn out half the West Coast, I think.
Oh, right.
And not so long ago, they had this big fire. Before I came, I think it was like 2015 or 14, they had like some kind of big fire that actually killed the guy I was talking about. His father lost a garage with like 5 old-timers in it because of that fire.
Tragic.
So that's why they do it in the winter. And if you there's less chance. Well, I say less chance. There's a smaller chance that you will set the whole thing on fire if you do it right.
Yeah. So I mean,
because it can go wrong.
How big are these patches of forest that need to be taken out?
I don't know if there's a lot of difference in let's say clusters or areas. If some clusters are denser or not, because I only went to one part of this forest, mm-hmm. which was near a town called, well, it had a very appropriate name. It's a town called Slave Lake.
Whoa!
It's like about 2.5 hours north of Edmonton, mm-hmm. in Alberta, and I don't know if there's different kinds of trees or different types of forests that are dense or not. But what I was doing you have to think of an area the size of maybe I don't know, 50 meters square, and there's like a cluster of maybe, you want the clusters to be big because you get paid by the trees, by the amount of trees you cut down. Every tree is like a certain amount of money you get. So you want to cut down as many trees as possible. So you don't want them to be fat. You want like preferably small little trees that are easy to handle.
Right.
Sometimes you get fat ones as well. So it's like a cluster of, if you're lucky, it's like, I guess in the high 20s. I'm not sure on the amounts anymore. And if you're not lucky, it's just a couple.
Sure.
Like 5 or 6, and then you have to move on to the next plot.
Right.
And obviously moving between plots takes time.
Right.
Because a lot of the time when you're moving between the plots, there's no road or anything. And there's like high snow and there's vegetation everywhere. And you have to pack all your stuff like water and fuel, your backpack, food, all those kinds of things. You have to carry that with you. Your chainsaw, obviously. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff to carry through. Often it's thick vegetation. Everything is frozen, so it's fucked up to do. But that's why I did it. I wanted to see how far I could push myself. I was, kind of coasting for months on end, and just following the summer, going to places where it's always easy. Just wear board shorts and flip flops and nothing else. Just have a little bit of money in your pocket, enough to get some lunch there somewhere, and go surf.
I mean, and, that's such a true testament to you. And I think a lot of people who travel for long term start to realize that you can't just kick it by a swimming pool in a sunny place the whole time. That, the mind and the body definitely want to work. And if you don't have something right in front of you, you kind of seek out these extraordinary type of endeavors. And I mean, for some people, I'm sure living in Canada, this is some guy's everyday job. If he listens to this, he'll be like, oh, Sylva's kind of soft talking about this is like an epic job,
but I'm sure of it.
Yeah, but to keep it in perspective, the terrain obviously must be like up and down and hilly. I remember you told me about one of the projects you guys were working on was a big hillside. And like you told me, you're supposed to divvy up like a group of trees and all these different piles, but you guys thought since the terrain was on such a big slope or it was so dense, you thought you could just basically make one giant pile and light it on fire. Can you tell me kind of how the events of that unfolded?
Yeah. So this is where I was telling you before, like they set this on fire in the winter, and they do it so to prevent a spread of fire. And usually if you stack it right and it's not too big, and you don't do it too close to vegetation that you need to keep alive, because it was a big no-no to cut down a tree that was healthy, even though if you might think that it was infected. You only cut down the trees you're supposed to cut down.
Right.
So in this instance, we were how to explain this? I remember standing down, looking upward, and it was like it was a hill with like a crevice in between that kind of went into a bend down to the right. It was like it's basically like a fault line. It looked like a fault line in a continent, but then micro scale on a hill.
Right.
And it was exactly all those trees on that hill that had to be cut down. Those were the infected trees. It was exactly in the right spot for us to cut them down in a certain way so they would fall on top of each other. And we just had to cut off the smaller stuff, the smaller branches, and we could just get that whole cluster in one go. As it was sloping, kinda, we put it's so stupid. we put fuel on top of it, kinda. It trickled down. We put on other spots. We started to light the whole thing on fire, and then it just started to connect. And we just sat back and we were just looking. And it's like, oh man, this is glorious. This is like a lot of work done in a small amount of time. That's what we thought at first. And then I was saying to Kill, like, you don't think it's getting a little bit big? And he's like, yeah, man, it's starting maybe to get out of hand a little bit. And then the whole thing, before we knew it, the whole fucking hill was on fire. I was like, I'm not talking like movie scale. It was a substantial fire, but it wasn't like hell on earth or anything.
Right.
Not at that point, at least.
Right.
But then we had to really had to handle quick. We had to do something because otherwise it would get out of hand. And there's other groups of people doing the same thing as you, but not very close. But you could hear the chainsaws of other people, other groups at times. So obviously you don't want other people to, get wind of what you're doing or what you're doing wrong, at least. Right. So we try to, cut down more because we had to create some kind of distance between the fire and vegetation, and then pull the whole thing apart. And it's funny because you go from freezing cold, all these layers on, and a lot of layers or at the joints start getting frozen up because you sweat, and then the sweat starts to freeze up, and then you can't move that well anymore. And within like 2 minutes, we were all black. We all had just one layer on, just a t-shirt, and we just trying to move logs, trying to move the fire in the direction we wanted. And eventually, with a lot of pain and a lot of effort, we succeeded in not letting the whole thing get out of control. But it was way, way, way too big. At one point we were thinking like, okay, we're going to burn down this whole section of forest.
We're just going to burn down Canada. Oh my gosh, man.
Maybe burn down the whole province of Alberta.
Well, I mean,
I don't think it would have gotten that far, but it was very scary though. Yeah, it was very scary.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they always say, like, they always try to tell us, and as we're kids and stuff, don't cut corners, and make sure to do things right. Because, like, maybe in the beginning you're like, oh wow, look at all the time and energy I just saved, but in the long run, you guys ended up having to do more work and more stressful work.
Way more.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was scary. It was, and that one was the worst one of all because it actually happened another time as well. Mm-hmm. But that was, I guess, this one because it was on a hill, and like the really large tree weren't that close to the fire. We weren't really, like, if we'd done nothing, it would have eventually reached the tree lines that were like the tree line of the bigger trees, let's say. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't that close to start with. Like this other time it was just a stack, but the stack was just bigger. Like the pyramid we made was just bigger than usual because it was probably more fat trees, or the cluster was a higher amount of trees, and we just made a bigger stack. But then that stack started to get, like, the flames started to go too high, and that was like in the middle of a forest, and that's when the other branches of the trees starting to get on fire, and that time we had to work harder to actually prevent it from spreading, because we had to cut down more to prevent more from getting on fire.
Right.
So that one was more stressful, and it's weird. You go from hot to cold, back. From cold to hot, and then back to cold. So yeah, it's very taxing on the physics of your on your body. It's you have to be physically very fit to be able to do that for, well, as he does it like 3 months a year, I think. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't envy that line of work. I do, kind of hunger for that experience one day, but maybe not in the professional sense. I know we have a lot more tree logging stories to talk about, and I don't think that a lot of people would have guessed that that's where these conversations would go about travel. But this is all connected to Canada, and this was this is not your home country. You ended up here because of somebody you met in, where was it, Bali or Australia?
Yeah.
So
Bali,
yeah. So now let's talk about some of the, I don't know, more the traveler hanging out situations in Canada. We've talked about I forget what it's called. Is it called Tofino? Is that where you went surfing?
Oh yeah, Tofino. So that was after all the work I'd done, because I'd done some work in Victoria as well as a roofer, and then the whole tree logging thing. And at one point, obviously, I don't want to just work when I'm in Canada, right? So I didn't want it to become a life that I have here already, and this group, like a group of friends of Kale, they asked me if I wanted to go with them to this place called Tofino, which is up north on Vancouver Island. And I'd never heard about it, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Like the road up to Tofino is really nice because it's well, for me, you have to keep in mind that I come from a flat country. So being anywhere with mountains for me is is something I never see. Usually I'd never seen before. Obviously, before I went to Canada, I'd seen them in Vietnam and Thailand and other places. But still, this was different because the trees are massive there. They have like 800-year-old trees, which are, well, yeah, it's going to take like 10 people to fit around it, let's say.
Wow.
And that's very impressive. And it's just, I don't know, the nature there is so, it's like what they say, pristine. It's a nice word to describe it. Like the water is super clear and you can just smell it, and there's like all kinds of birds and wildlife. And this place, Tofino, is like a little surfer's place. Like weirdly enough, there's a lot of surfing going on there. And we rented this really nice house, like a big house, all made of wood. And like 2 or 3 levels. I think we were 12 or 14 people. And it had like this little walkway that went up into the woods. And then at the end of the walkway, it had like a hot tub. It was like, for me, it was like a movie where and it was snowing as well. So you were sitting in the hot tub and then, the hot tub's in the forest and it's snowing. So everything's white. So it couldn't be more picture perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they had like the whole surfing going on. But still, it's Canada. So I think it was, what was it? I can't remember, but it was close to the winter, or it was winter. And water was, I think it was like 6 degrees Celsius, which is very cold.
Yeah.
So when surfing, you had to wear like a 6mm suit, booties, hoodie, gloves, the whole thing. But the surf there was actually really nice. Like it was a little bit more violent than in Bali because it's a little bit more rough, I guess, or it felt more chaotic.
Is it
at the day I was surfing?
Were you longboarding or shortboarding?
I guess you could do both. Like the day I was surfing, the waves weren't massive, but I know they can get massive. So shortboard you can do that fine. I had a longboard when I was doing that. And the nice thing about this particular place I went to, because Tofino is the place, the geographical layout is a lot of different separated little islands, let's say. It's like a cluster of islands. And you have all these tiny beaches everywhere. And this particular beach that we were surfing on, you had the waves coming in, let's say on the left, so you could surf a wave. It's actually lazy when you think about it, because you just go to the end of the surf, you get out, and you walk up the beach, because it kind of bent, and then you get back into the waves, and you're basically exactly where you want to be to catch the next one.
Oh, so you don't have to paddle out that much?
No, not at all. So that was really nice. And we did other things. Like the Canadians are outdoorsy people. They do a lot of camping. I experienced in Australia the same thing. Like these people are very outdoorsy, but Australia's obvious because the weather is a lot of the time it's very nice. Mm-hmm. And Canada, especially British Columbia, has very much the same climate as we have here in Holland. That is temperate and it can rain a lot of times. The winters are a little bit harsher, but it gets real harsh when you pass the Rocky Mountains. That's where it gets really cold.
Yeah.
And BC usually doesn't get that cold. So, I'm kind of lost track here, but
sure.
That place is really nice. The surf was nice, the food was great. Like I said, the people are very outdoorsy. At one point, they brought a tarp and like a barbecue with this copper coil, coil that went into it, and I didn't know what it was. I thought I just wanted to barbecue. Eventually, we did barbecue, but they used the coil for something else. So while we were surfing, a couple of the guys, they kind of folded the tarp around a couple of logs, and they made this little tub, which was like maybe about 40 centimeters deep, like a little over a foot deep. And the water circulated through this copper tubing through the barbecue. So it was kind of heating up the water in the barbecue. So when we got back from surfing, we all got into that little hot tub and we got warm water because the water outside was freaking cold. That was ingenious. I thought that was such a good idea. Like people here would never think of something like that.
I
Even
feel
the
like,
climate, even though the
yeah.
climate is the
I mean, I
same, but
feel
that's
like,
such a good idea. And I thought,
yeah,
like, I don't know, it kind of gave that experience something else.
sure,
It was
sure.
just fun. And eventually, we put the barbecue in the middle of the water and started frying stuff on the barbecue while sitting in that little puddle.
I mean,
That was really funny.
that sounds like a good way to combat how cold that water is you have the hot tub on the beach. That is really ingenious. I
Oh
never
yeah,
would have thought of digging
it
a
is
hole and
very
heating it
ingenious.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, you've definitely painted a very diverse picture of Canada that I don't think a lot of people are ever going to have those experiences in Canada, but you never
No.
know. There's
Yeah.
obviously a lot of things you can do there. It's a very diverse place with a lot of opportunity, but I must say those are some of the
Mm-hmm.
most interesting stories I've ever heard about Canada myself.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, yeah. It's just the way things went for me, and the people I got to meet that brought me in those situations. Obviously, I did it myself as well, but they were a big part of it. And on another note, I've only been to one side of Canada. Like, in Canada is very two-sided, obviously, because I think the East is totally different. Not only because of the fact they speak French there, or kind of sounds like French. No, it is French, but it's very different.
Well, the French people tend to think it's not quite French, but we'll leave that alone for
No,
now.
and I'm half French, so yeah.
Ah, that explains a lot. That explains a lot.
And yeah, so no, I suppose that side is very different. But what I like most about Canada is the nature. It's just the way it's like everything I'd seen in movies from mountainous areas, and obviously there's a lot more places like that. But I've just been to that one with mountains like that, and I rode through like the whole trip from Victoria to that place above Edmonton. The whole trip I drove myself because Kale had like the night before we were supposed to leave, he lost his license because he drank too much. So basically, I had to drive the whole trip.
What a guy.
So that was, yeah. So, but for me, that was like I really like that because first of all, I like to drive. Like I never mind to drive at all, and driving in a big 4x4 with a V8 and a snowmobile on a what do you call it, a skiff, or the thing you connect to the back of the car.
I don't know.
And just drive through the mountains, go to Jasper. We stopped at this place, like a ski resort, stayed there for one night, and we went out to this club, and then a couple of other people. And then driving down, Alberta's basically the same as Holland. It's very flat. It's like hilly, but it's mostly flat. So it's a big contrast. You drive down a mountain, and there's nothing but one straight road, and it kind of looks like the Wild West, but instead of sand, there's snow.
So we've talked about Canada in a way that, like I mentioned before, that I don't think most people are going to experience it in that way. There's another country that you'd been to, and I don't know if you want to call it traveled there or just took a holiday, but it's a place that when you told me about it, it was not on my radar at all. It's still not really on my radar, but the way that our relationships with depending which home country you're from and how you perceive neighboring countries is very different. Like you said, that Germany and Belgium may not be your first choice of like going on an adventure and seeing something wildly different. And for me, that's kind of how I felt about Canada a little bit. I found out that there's a place it's in Bulgaria called Sunny Beach. And apparently it's like an English hotspot. Like a ton of English people go there on holiday. It's not necessarily the classiest place. Obviously, there's different places you can go to. You've been there.
I've been there.
Yeah, you told me about multiple occasions. And you told me about just kind of the landscape and the way it looks. It's actually like a very beautiful place.
I'm pretty sure. Like I became more interested in the country itself after the second time I went. Just because I like languages a lot. I speak multiple languages myself, and then I started to notice a couple of similarities in Bulgarian and the fact that they use a couple of French words for certain things. So that kind of got me interested. And I started doing some research on the country itself, because Sunny Beach basically is like, you know, you mentioned English people, they go to like places like Magaluf or Lloret de Mar in Spain. It's just a coastal area with a lot of cheesy restaurants and cheesy clubs and a lot of young people, a lot of resorts. It's the exact opposite of what you would want to find when you're backpacking. But at this point in time, that's something I had never done anything like that when I was younger. When I was like around the age that you actually do that, like a couple years younger than I was at that time, I had never done that. And at that, because of my DJing career, my group of friends started to get younger and younger and younger, which I guess kept me young as well. But at that point, my friends were like 5 or 6 years younger than me, and they heard about this place, and we were like, I proposed, let's go there. Just book a flight, super cheap. Back then, it was like the drinks and the food was very cheap as well. And the country itself, I don't know. You still see some Soviet influences. Obviously, there's still some things you can see in, like, I don't know, billboards. It's just the type of the language that they have, like what do you call it, the alphabet they use. I don't know. Maybe it's more that reminded me of things like, I don't know. Fuck it, I'm just rambling right now. Never mind what I just said.
No, well, I mean,
anyway,
Belarus.
It reminds me. Well, it's close to the Mediterranean. It basically looks like that. But Sunny Beach is just like a place for going out and having lots of fun with friends and going out a little bit more, sitting on the beach, going on a water scooter. That's the whole thing.
Is that what you call it? Wait. Hang on. Is that what you call a jet ski? A water scooter?
Water scooter. Yeah, a jet ski is the one you stand on. The one you sit on is a scooter.
The one you sit on. I mean, sometimes they call them Sea-Doo, or like they're all kind of jet skis. That's super funny though. I've never heard anybody call it a water scooter before. Yeah. Although there are these scooters in Indo that they're probably other places too, but they're called NMAX, and a lot of the local people call them jet skis because they kind of look like a jet ski.
True, that's true. I drove on one for a long time when I was there.
Oh, you're the one.
With a surf practice.
I think
it's ideal.
Yeah,
I love those things.
I think you're the one who converted me, because I think I saw yours, and I was I was on the motorcycle, and I was like, oh, I look cool, and I got my motorcycle. But after a while, you're like, I don't need a motorcycle just to go to and from the beach. You know what I mean? I just need something comfortable with a surf rack, plenty of storage. Maybe that's the old man coming out in me, because it's just like when I look at the NMAX, I'm just like, man, it's just so practical, you know, so functional.
But no, the thing is, I was like, I went through the same thing in Bali. Like, first, when you come in Bali, everybody drives a motorbike. There's more motorbikes than cars, right?
Right.
I went for my motorcycle license when I got back home, because I drove so many motorcycles when I was in Southeast Asia. I was like, okay, this is a thing for me. I really want to do this. And I got up to the point that I had to, my exams, and I got real scared on the freeway. I failed my exam, and I was like, fuck no, I'm not going to drive a motorcycle. Because driving a motorcycle here in Holland is way more scary than it is believe it or not, than driving one in Bali or Indonesia.
Oh, yeah, man. I've driven motorcycle
I was thinking, what I'm going to say now, you're probably going to recognize. The thing is, in countries like that and places like Bali, everybody drives a motorbike. So people in cars know this. They know all around them there's going to be motorbikes and traffic rules. Nobody adheres to traffic rules there. It's like even a red light, except big junctions. Obviously, they stop for a red light, but most of the time it's just first come, first serve, right?
Yeah.
And people in cars know this, so they keep in account that from any nook and cranny, a little scooter can pop up and drive right in front of you. So they're with like a third foot on the brake the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, this is not the case. There's a lot less bikes, so people don't take notice of bikes. They're not even visible. Like, a lot of people on a motorbike here all wear high-vis helmets, like fluorescent yellow. Not the cool dudes, obviously, but a lot of people do, like the yellow vest with reflective things, because there's a lot of motorbike accidents. And here, motorbikes go a lot faster, because in Indonesia it's up to 250 cc's or maybe 300, but not much more than that. And the scooters you rent, or the bikes even the Deus motorbikes, they look really cool, but they're not very comfortable. If you go over, let's say, I don't know, 50 miles an hour, then it starts to shake and ramble. It's not comfortable anymore.
Definitely not.
These MX, they go a little bit faster. But here, the motorbikes, you can get like 1,100 cc's. You can go 320 kilometers an hour if you want. So that's different, right?
Yeah.
The risks are a lot higher. So I kind of stopped driving motorbikes, and I was like, no, not here. But there, yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah. I kind of did the same thing when I got back to the States. I got my permit or whatever for driving motorcycle in Los Angeles, and I pretty much didn't have to do anything. I just had to like finish a written test, and I passed it, and they gave me like my preliminary license or whatever. And then I had it scheduled to go take my test, and I just never did it, even though taking a test in California is super easy. You just have to do some maneuvers in a parking lot. You don't have to there's no road test, there's nothing. And driving in Los Angeles, man, is an absolute nightmare. I don't enjoy it at all. I drove from like Santa Monica area to downtown LA on the 10. We went early in the morning, so there wasn't much traffic, but it's not a fun experience just flying down the freeway going, 80 miles an hour the whole way. And then once you get to the downtown area, cruising around, it's super fun and beautiful. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I have the experience, but I have no desire to drive motorcycle in that part of the States. Maybe going cross country and getting into the back country and seeing nature and exploring one day, but day-to-day driving on that, I don't see why. The risk is too high. Like you said, people are not looking for you. It's not something I'm subscribing to right now. But obviously, back to Sunny Beach and it being such no, you're good. You're good. No, it's fine. That's the whole point of this thing is like it's you talk about all kinds of different aspects of travel and life.
For sure,
but I don't want to out you, but I do want you to tell this story. And it's like the main reason I brought it up is that you told me like obviously like in these kind of places, if I can relate this to my American friends, Sunny Beach is like the equivalent to like Cancun or Cabo, you know what I mean? It's just people going, people going crazy. There's very little sophistication there. So obviously, like you and your buddies went out a few times, and one of the nights or one of the days, you came back to the hotel a little drunk, and maybe
no, actually, it was the first day we came there. This time we started drinking on the airport in Amsterdam.
Oh man!
So the whole thing started here in Amsterdam. We all got a bottle of something. Was it tax free? No, it's still Europe. No, it wasn't tax free. We just got a bottle of something. I got a bottle of Jim Beam. That's what I remember. I don't know what the other guys got. I think we were like 6. I think it was 6 of us. Something like that, yeah. And we just started drinking, tanking on the airplane. It was starting to get out of hand on the airplane already. So we got into Varna. I think that's the airport you fly into, and then it's a bus ride. So you get to see a little bit of the country itself, because it's like an hour with the bus, I think. And we got into the hotel. The thing was, that hotel we got into, it wasn't like our rooms weren't ready yet. They still had like the previous guests just went out. They had to let the cleaners do their thing. And obviously we were like shit-faced. Like when we got there, we didn't even unpack or anything. We were fucked already. So what do you do when you're fucked? You go to the bar and you just sit at the bar, drink a little bit more. And at one point, I just had enough. Like that Jim Beam, that was the last time I drank Jim Beam, I think. I'm pretty sure I did. I think that was the last time I ever voluntarily drank it. So at one point, my friends were sitting at this bar. It's like this typical in-pool bar. So you sit on bar chairs, which are in the water, and then on the other side is the bar.
Yeah.
And I just kind of knocked out on this, this bed next to the pool, like this sun bed. And it didn't take long. There wasn't even like a cushion on it. I just like sat on it, and I was just out. I was out. And in the meantime, the room got ready, and the guys took everybody's luggage, and they went up into the rooms, and they put luggage in rooms, and then they went back down, and they had to wake me up. So they all, lifted me up, threw me in a pool to wake me up, because that's what you do with a friend when he's drunk. And so that's how I woke up. And the minute I woke up, I was like, fuck, like, obviously I'm wet, but I also have, like, I really have to take a shit right now, like right now. So I kind of stormed up the room. I was like, dude, where's the room? Where's like, told me, yeah, it's like second floor. It's like room number this and this. I didn't really pay attention. I just ran up the stairs, and we were 6 people. So we had 3 rooms, like 2 in each room. And I came second floor, and there's like 2 doors open. I'm like, okay, so these are rooms. The third one must be like 1 floor up or down the hall or whatever. So I just ran into the room, go into the bathroom, do my business. And then I'm done doing my business. And first of all, what happened is that I realized that I didn't shit in the toilet. I realized that I just like dumped a big deuce in the sink for whatever reason. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what happened? Like, why? What did I just do? It's like, and I was trying to think of myself, like, walking out the bathroom, like face palming myself, eyes closed. And then I open up my eyes and I look. It's like, you're not my friends. And like, there's a couple of guys sitting on a bed. There's like, I totally don't know these guys. And it's like, yeah, I think you're in the wrong room. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm in the wrong room. But before I leave, let me clean up something first. So I went back into the toilet. I cleaned it up. Don't ask me how. And I kind of stormed out there. I don't think we didn't really talk to those guys anymore on vacation. I don't remember a lot of that anymore, but yeah, and luckily I was still very like off my face at that time, so I didn't care that much. I was like, it's a funny story. Already at that point I was thinking like, oh, this is gonna be a funny story to tell my friends.
Yeah, I mean,
I went down and told.
You can apologize to those guys right now. Maybe they'll listen to this one day.
Oh, yeah, maybe they do. Maybe it's like, oh, my fuck. That's the guy who fucking shot in our sink. Oh, my. Yeah. No, well, I think I did. Like, as I left, I might have, or as I said that I had to clean something up and that I apologized. I don't really remember, but it wasn't like a big drama. They didn't get mad, at least not that I remember. Nothing serious came out of it. But it was a weird thing. It was a weird thing. Like, weird things happen in countries like that, especially, like, there's things with cops in Bulgaria as well. So there's, like, obviously you have the regular police, which is, like, the government police. Mm-hmm. But in this part of Sunny Beach, there's, like, the place all the tourists go, where you have all the resorts with the nice swimming pools and all the shit. Like, everything's close to the beach. You're never far from the beach because it's, like, this thin strip. And then if you go up ahead, they call it Mob Town. I don't know if this is something my friends came up with, this name, or that it's actually called Mob Town, but that's the place where tourists don't go. That's where all the club owners live. And basically every club owner is a mob guy. They're like criminals. I wouldn't say criminals, but, not everything is legit what they do.
For sure.
And so every club has their own security. And basically you have to be more afraid of those guys than of the real police, because the real police is government. These guys, if they want to fuck you up, they'll just fuck you up, and they don't give a shit.
Right. Not
to scare anybody. This doesn't happen that often. I don't think it happened they have to have a reason, right? So let's say you shoplift at the wrong store, you won't just get arrested, you'll get fucking beat up.
Right.
And then at one point, me and my friends, this was that same exact year, I think. We started going to this bar every night. And every night went to it was a nice bar. The music wasn't that bad. It had had this Mexican theme going on, and we're just sitting there spending a lot of money because we just had the money to spend, and just ordering bottles of this and that. And then eventually, the bar manager started noticing. So he comes to sit at us. I don't remember his name. Betat was his name. This big Bulgarian guy. He comes sit at us, and he's like, yeah, you like our bar? And just talking, and we just kept spending money. And eventually coming there every night. Then the boss came. His name was, I think it was Valentino or something like that. And he was this, you could see by just how just by their demeanor, I guess. I don't know. You could see this guy is just not some bar owner. This is something, I don't know. I just had my suspicions from the get-go. Mm-hmm. But it was all good and fun, you know. Everybody was laughing and laughing. Nothing was going on. And then at one point, they were like, "Yeah, you come eat with us. You come eat with us in our town, and we show you around, and you don't have to pay. You know, you know how they can be, or maybe you don't. I don't know." And so I was like, you know, guys, I don't think this is a very good idea. You know, we are kind of pretty sure these guys have that much money for a certain reason. And it's not this bar. You know, 'cause this bar is not generating that much revenue to give them that amount of money. Because they had like villas and jet skis and all that. You know, they had all the big Mercedes cars, and you can just see it even by the number plates. Because if you can recognize a kind of a mobster type dude, if they have like a number plate that's 9999 1111, they buy these number plates just to, I don't know. I don't even know if that's true, but that's what everybody said when I was there.
Either way,
I kind of believe it.
Either way, you were getting a vibe that something was up.
I was getting a vibe. Something was off, and I was like, I don't know what you guys. I was advising against it. I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go along. You guys can do whatever the fuck you want, but I'm just not going. So I ended up being the only one not going. In hindsight, I regretted that because they might have been like. In their own respects, not super legal or whatever. I'm pretty sure they weren't. But my friends had an awesome time. They went to this mob town. They got like all kinds of exotic meats. I think the bill for the restaurant was like 1,500 euros, and these guys paid for all of it. And eventually they came back. They had a super nice night. They stayed up till late. They went to a club. I don't know, like the thing that happens in movies when you meet guys like that, right? And still, after when they came back, I was like, you know, there's got to be something. You know, eventually they're going to come knock at the door, and they're going to want something in return for it. But that never happened. So sometimes it pays off to, you know, take a little risk and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not encouraging anybody to like sit down with any mob bosses, but
no. Yeah. This is just a feeling I had.
Sure.
And there were indicators, but these are all just stories, right? So it could have been, it might not have been, I don't know. It was just the feeling I had, and you know, on the other hand, something like that could have happened, like some weird shit could have happened, but you know, there's not, like, stuff does happen here and there now and then. But,
sure.
You know, I don't think you know, in this case everything was benign and nothing weird happened. That guy actually came to Holland, and these guys showed him out to a club in Amsterdam. It's a club called Paradiso, which is you know, they have a lot of good parties there.
Oh, I've been there.
It's funny. Oh, yeah, you've been there. Yeah,
I was there for.
Well, you know the place.
Yeah.
And this guy came in, and he's like, the first thing he says is, "What is the VIP table?"
Yeah,
like there's no VIP table, man.
Yeah, there's no VIP table there. Paradiso is like it's like an old church they converted, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
super rad. I saw
an event center, concerts and techno parties and shit.
I saw Fatima Yamaha in I think it was like 2018 at Amsterdam Dance Event, the music festival there.
Yeah,
that was rad.
Oh yeah.
That was I don't know. Actually, it might have been before then, because I don't think we knew each other yet. I think that might have been 2017.
I don't remember you talking about that. I think I would have remembered that. I didn't even know you went to Holland before you met us.
Before I met you, I definitely went to Holland because I knew some Dutch. Because I was talking Dutch with you guys. I was like,
oh right, yeah. I remember now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay,
like,
that's cool. That's a cool venue to see an artist like that, for sure.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. You guys were all like, why does this kid from California know Dutch? And I was like, I don't know, man. Just picked up a few words here and there. So Sylva, like, what's funny is like most of the episodes we've had so far, we've talked a lot about conceptual stuff. Everybody's like, oh, you got to have confidence and you got to take a risk and you got to, you know, be willing to do all these things. And you and I have definitely just been talking, not just, but like we've been talking a lot about stories and things that have happened. So I kind of want to wrap it all together with Like what pushed you to do something different, go against, maybe what some of your friends have done, or go with some of what your friends have done, and then also kind of dealing with that family pushback at different times with like, hey, like, is this forever? Are you coming back? I mean, what were your motivations? Obviously, having fun is one big motivation that we all have. We want to grow, we want to develop, and like, what were some of your goals, or where was your head at, and how do you feel about everything now that it's been a few years, and you're a different person because of the whole experience?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, yeah. On the story side, there's a lot of other stories I could talk about, like stuff I went through in different countries, but maybe for another time. Like touching on the subject you just started up is like, for me, my whole reasons of, I don't think I've ever told anyone the actual whole story or reason I went, because my whole backpacking trip started out for all the wrong reasons. Like, now in hindsight, when I think back on it, and it's only recently that I actually started to think back of it. To give you an example, I have a hard drive with thousands of pictures that I made along the way, and I sometimes I chose a couple pictures from that to look at, but 95% I'd never looked at all since I came back, because it kind of reminded me of the reasons why I started out traveling. And eventually it turned out into something really good. And I'm not, I don't have any regrets. Obviously, nobody has any regrets when they start backpacking, because it's one of the best experiences you can take yourself on.
Right.
But for me, it all started out with a girl. And I was, funny enough, I was, it's going to be so funny if she listens to it. But I've never told her this, I think. But I guess she knows. I'm pretty sure she does. But I started out traveling because I was basically chasing someone. I was madly in love with somebody for a long, long time. Things kind of didn't work out. And then eventually she started traveling. And basically, I had this money to begin with, like I said in the beginning. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to... I didn't really go after her straight away, but at one point I think if I remember correctly, I was saying, like, I might, if I can, come and visit or go somewhere in the vicinity. And if you want to meet up, we can meet up. It was something like that. So I started traveling, went to Malaysia, and we didn't have anything at that point anymore. We had something before a little bit. Anyway, details. Met up there, and then in Thailand, we met up, did Thailand, Vietnam together, more or less. And eventually, I did start to realize that if I'm going to continue on that path, I'm not really going to enjoy my travels. I'm doing this for not to travel and to meet new people and to explore new stuff. I'm just doing this to satisfy this little urge I have. And it took me a long time to kind of see through this like foggy thing that I was in. And eventually, let me think. I have to go back again, because there's certain parts that I maybe didn't want to think about for a long time, and I'm trying to kind of come back to them. I think at one point, that's one of the reasons I went to Canada, because obviously it was because of Kale and the things he told me about the work he did. But at that point, I was like on a certain low. I was here for a little while. I wasn't feeling, after traveling, I did like the whole Asia thing. I went to Australia, and then from Australia, I went to the Middle East for a little bit, to Qatar. And then I went back to Holland, and I tried to kind of pick up my life again. And I had a job. Didn't turn out very well, because I was just psychologically, something wasn't right. I couldn't put my finger on it, what it was exactly. But I had started something for a wrong reason, and along the way, I realized that I had to do something else to kind of, get something out of it for myself. And then I went back too early, something like that, and I just got stuck on my job. I couldn't think anymore. I lost my job, and then I started having fights with a couple of friends, especially that girl. And then Kale kind of said to me, like, "Oh yeah, why don't you go to Canada?" And I was thinking, like, maybe I should go there and just push myself doing that job, see how far I can really, push myself to do anything, because it's just a weird, I don't know, I was just in this weird place. And when I went to Canada, especially after I did that work, I went to Tofino with all those friends. I don't know, from that point, something changed in me. And I managed to save a little bit more money along the way. And that's when the exploring part, the actual backpacking story, for me takes off. Obviously, I'd done backpacking before, and I'd seen like Thailand, Vietnam. I did the whole motorbike thing in Vietnam, which is awesome. Like, Vietnam is one of my high points, like one of the most beautiful countries I've been to.
Yeah, same.
Scenic one. And after Canada, I went back to Bali, and I think that's when I went to Bali a lot of times, stayed there for a long time, in total, like more over a year. And that's when I met you guys. And I think I went back to Australia for a little bit as well. I don't remember the exact timeline, but that's when the real, I don't know, sharing stories and meeting new people and really getting the interest to find out about people and find out about what their stories are, what their experiences are, because eventually that's what I like the most about the travels. Obviously, it's nice to see nice waterfalls, nice mountains, and go to nice beaches and stuff like that. But what I like most were the nights where you sit at a hostel or next to a campfire with people you barely know, and then you can get a real deep connection within a very short amount of time. Just sharing stories, and I don't know, it might seem obvious in some ways to say stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't think you'll get it until you experience it. When you're sitting on a beach in some place you barely know, right? And there's no light pollution or anything, and there's a campfire going, just share stories. And that's what I like the most. It's just meeting these people and sharing stories. And then when you hit it off with somebody, you just go on a trip together and you go to this other place. There's a lot of people that I met, and then a couple of days later we were on a plane together, went to another place, and then we parted ways again, which is great, right? It's a fun way to travel, and it's very nice to, share these different things with different people that you might never meet again, but it doesn't matter. You have this thing in your head which will never change, and these moments that will never change.
Yeah, and, you'll always have the memories.
Best thing.
And I think you made a really good point, intentionally or unintentionally. When you do things for other people, it's way different than when you do something for yourself. And
for sure, yeah.
When you went
way more fulfilling.
Yeah, and when you went to Canada, while it wasn't maybe the typical travel experience, it was something that you did for yourself, for your physical health, for your mental health, and it was a very impactful time for you and very memorable. So I really appreciate you sharing that and just being honest with us. And I'm sure that the travel community will be very supportive and receptive to what you've shared, because it's been very different than what we've talked about on the last few episodes. So I'm really glad that we got to have you on, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Sylva. I hope we can do this again in the future.
I'm definitely up for it. I really enjoyed it myself as well, and yeah, man, it's good stuff you're doing. I really like the other episodes. I listened to a couple of them. Obviously, Quinn and Hagen, the first one as well.
Yeah,
Hagen, I'm actually going to meet him soon because he's here in Holland.
Fantastic.
It's been quite a while since I met him, so it's going to be nice to be able to meet somebody you met along the way who's actually close by.
For sure. Make sure you guys should take a photo and send it to me, and I'll throw it up on the Instagram so we can show.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, for sure. We'll do that. And thanks for having me, man. It was an absolute honor.
Honest, guys. All right, everybody, take care, and we'll talk to you soon.